Good morning and welcome to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. John Cornell, Shane Matthews on a Tuesday morning. Got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
In a few minutes, we're going to go straight to our Titan MRI hotline, and we're going to talk to ESPN basketball analyst Mark Wise.
I love Mark Wise. He's got a lot of information. Former Gator announcer, now working with ESPN, sees basketball from many different angles nationwide, and of course is the guy that we're all familiar with and will give us some nice insight on Florida basketball, of course, what he sees around the country. And then if we have the time, I think he's at an airport you mentioned before the show, but if we have the time, I'd like to hear his take on, and maybe I'm overplaying this or
You're loving this subject.
the one and done thing I got to hear somebody with some serious basketball knowledge and background tell me whether I am right or wrong about who's got the power in this case. Is it the NCAA? No. Is it the NBA? Yes. But I want him to confirm that for me because it bothers me to hear people say that the NCAA needs to change its eligibility requirements because I don't think that has anything to do with anything. A lot of stuff happened last night, QB. I mean, before we get to Mark real quick here in a minute, that race in Daytona, the way it ended, was unbelievable. If you didn't see it, Ryan Newman goes upside down. His car burns up, and he's at the hospital in stable condition, actually in serious condition, hopefully to be upgraded to stable condition. But his injuries, they say, are not life-threatening, and that came from NASCAR. So hopefully
that shows you what they've done with these cars to protect these
no idea
drivers.
how he survives that crash.
They say it's the worst crash in the history of the NASCAR.
200 miles an hour, right. I mean, well, of course, the one that Dale Earnhardt suffered killed him. And that was on the last lap, as was last night's crash on the last lap. It irritated me to no end that the final 6 laps took an hour, it seemed. Lots of caution flags, these guys trying to win, but Denny Hamlin does it. His third Daytona 500 victory in the last 5 years, back-to-back. The only other driver to win back-to-back Daytona 500s was the king, and that would be number 43 in the STP Dodge, Richard Petty, my guy. But, I think Hamlin certainly benefited from that. He missed being snipped in that accident. I mean, we're talking inches, these guys, the way they follow each other.
And they're going over 200 miles an hour. It's
just
scary.
unbelievable. It's scary to hell. I can't.
Well, tonight in the O'Connell Center, the Arkansas Razorbacks are going to be in town to face the Gators. That game's at 7 o'clock. A lot of other games around the SEC. Tennessee's at Vanderbilt, Ole Miss at Missouri, and the big game in the conference is Kentucky's at LSU at 9 o'clock on ESPN.
Yeah, Kentucky-LSU is the game I'm looking at. Kentucky is 11-3 against LSU under John Calipari. They have not lost back-to-back games against LSU in the John Calipari era, as we decide to give them a call. They have not lost to LSU back-to-back, so this could happen. We'll see. Kentucky, though, 11-3 under Calipari versus LSU.
Mark, you there?
I'm here.
All right. We are joined now by Mark Wise, ESPN hoop analyst. We appreciate you joining the program. John Cornell, Shane Matthews here on Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Mark, I know you weren't there Saturday night in the O'Connell Center. You were busy calling the game, I believe, out in Dallas. Give us your thoughts. I know you watched the ceremonies of Billy Donovan Court. What were your thoughts?
Well, I thought – what an honor for Billy in terms of a lasting legacy. You know, they're going to play on that court long after the three of us are not with us anymore, and that will always be the Billy Donovan court. But the other thing that was special to me, and I said this a week earlier about the Bob Knight thing, was the players, the smiles on the players' faces, the enjoyment that they had watching Billy being honored in that way. And I don't care if you were talking about Patrick Young or Bradley Beal or Teddy Dupay. I mean, just go look at any of the pictures, and it's just a wonderful moment for Billy and a wonderful moment for his family.
I loved seeing it, and I certainly was impressed by the turnout that they had, as were you, Mark. It's JC here. I was curious. Florida, for all of the talk that we've had about some of their struggles this year, still remains fourth place in the SEC at 16-9. Give us your quick, give us a capsule on what you've seen from Florida, what you expect to see as we go through the tougher part of the schedule here at the end of the year.
Well, there's no question they've been wildly inconsistent on the offensive end, and sometimes that's impacted their defense. I'm sorry. How many games have they won? Because everybody tends to forget
16.
that. I think
16.
Yeah. So the win at South Carolina looks a little better week by week. The win against Xavier looks a little better week by week. So if you don't, I keep saying this, guys. All these coaches talk to me in this vein, and Mike White's no different. What you got to win to do? What do you have to do to win tonight, Coach? Oh, we got to defend and rebound. We got to defend and rebound. Yeah. No, you don't. Stop that. Stop it. You got to make shots, man. Yeah. That's what the game's all about.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that, Mark. And I think Florida, they've had their days. When they get in the 80s, they look like, to me and Shane last, but when they get to the 80s, the chances are exponentially higher that they're going to win games, even if the other team's getting in the 80s, it seems.
Well, here's the thing that I evaluate. Forget do you make shots? What kind of shots are you getting? And for the most part, when Florida's not making shots, they're good shots. A lot of times these are wide open threes that guys are missing. So I think a couple of things happened early on. I think we overvalued how simple it would be just to plug Blackshear in. And we undervalued the difficulty of playing that many freshmen that many minutes. And those two things, I think, have kind of led to the up and down roller coaster kind of ride they've had, especially on the offensive end.
Mark, when you watch this Gator basketball team, I watch a lot of college basketball, and would you agree with this assessment? I think we have a really good basketball team, but I think we lack athleticism and quickness. And when you look at some of the teams, especially in our conference, the LSUs, the Kentuckys, the Auburns, they just look a little more athletic than us. Yeah. Am I seeing things correctly?
Yes, absolutely. I think especially defensively, if you want to be good defensively, you must have these ingredients. One is team speed. Florida is, I would say, average at best. I think they're below average. You've got to have length, and again, average comes to mind. And then you've got to have the ability to block shots at multiple positions, which they do not have. So if you don't have those ingredients, it's going to be hard to be an elite defensive team. It's like pineapple upside down cake. I mean, it's really hard to make that without pineapple.
Well, what would you expect going forward with the schedule now as it appears, Mark, with 2 games against Kentucky and 1 against LSU left, and Arkansas tonight, which is a very important game for Florida. Put your little crystal ball out there, if you would, and tell us what we can expect, or what should we expect going forward with this team where they are right now, please.
Well, JC, like a lot of people, you want to read the last chapter of the book. Yeah. And that's not where we are.
Well, I do. I really do.
It's a 20-chapter book, the basketball season, and we're on chapter 17.
Okay. Well, if we're
we still have plot twists, we have character development.
Yes,
we still have all these things going on. So every game has a life of its own, and everybody wants to connect. Everybody thought when Florida lost at Missouri, that how in the world could you lose to Missouri? Well, so did Auburn.
Yeah.
And then how in the world you lost at Ole Miss when Ole Miss was 1-7, and then Ole Miss wins 3 in a row and had a possession to beat Kentucky and Rupp the other day.
No, it's basketball. I get it. I agree with that. I just hope that fans kind of understand the trajectory of the team as opposed to having unrealistic expectations. So that's what I'm trying to.
What's the goal? What's the goal of every team?
Get into the tournament.
Yeah.
JC doesn't buy that.
What are you talking about? I don't buy that. I buy that, QB. I bought that a long time ago. I buy that. Mark, he's crazy. I buy getting into the tournament. I get it. But getting to the Sweet 16, I think, is the separator to me. I don't know.
We're speaking with Mark White.
Okay. I would tell you then my answer to that is you don't really have an understanding of how hard it is to win a game in the tournament then. Because it's really, really difficult. Here's what I've said about expectation level for Florida and their fans. I think based on the last 20 years, I think you have every right to expect Florida to make the tournament every year. And I think you have the right to expect them to win a game in the tournament, because when I go back over 20 years, that's kind of where the fulcrum lies. But after that, man, it
who
is
knows?
all gravy.
Yeah.
We're speaking with Mark Wise, ESPN basketball analyst. You can follow him at Twitter at MW Hoops. Mark, let's switch to the conference right now. You got Auburn, LSU, Kentucky, Florida, the top 4 teams in the league. When I watch Auburn play, I don't see any great basketball players, any great shooters. They're just one of those scrappy bunches that just gets after it. And I think they kind of reckless abandon type play. When you look at LSU, I think they got some really good players. Obviously, Kentucky does as well. When you look at those ones that are kind of on the bubble, the South Carolinas, the Tennessees, the Mississippi States, which I think Mississippi State's starting 5 is as athletic and as long and as good as anybody in the league. Talk about which one of those teams that are kind of on the bubble have a chance to get in the tournament.
Well, that's a great segue because I have South Carolina at Mississippi State tomorrow night.
Good game.
So I've got a game. Yeah. I got a team on the bubble and a team headed toward the bubble. Here's what I think. I think I'm going to answer this in a roundabout way. I think the fact that we don't have quite the one and dones that we've had in previous years means that the Kentucky, Dukes, Kansases are not able to separate themselves. So I'm using Kentucky in that example. I think the new 3-point line has kind of brought everybody to the same kind of crowded middle. And then lastly, all the transfers. The transfer epidemic that we have in college basketball has spread the talent around to the point where I think this time of the year, we have basically known that the winner of the NCAA tournament is going to come from these 8 to 10 teams. I think this year that number could be as big as 20, 25. Yeah. In terms of the league, I agree with you. Auburn doesn't shoot the ball quite as well as they did with Harper and Brown. They still play the same way. It's still Bruce Pearl. LSU is the best North and South team in the league, meaning they don't mess around with ball reversal, man. They just go straight at the hoop. They drive it to the rim. They get the ball up and try to go get it either on a second or third shot opportunity. Kentucky doesn't shoot a lot of threes, don't make a lot of threes, but still, when you're trying to guard those 3 guys. So I think, I've said for the last 3 weeks, I think Kentucky's the best team in the league. I'm not backing off of that. In terms of what team do I think Arkansas is damaged goods because of Isaiah Joe being out. That's not to say Mason Jones isn't capable of getting 40, because he has. And he's really, really good. I think this battle for who might get another spot is basically going to come down to Mississippi State and South Carolina, and I think and I'm pretty excited to have the game.
Well, you're going to have probably a nice atmosphere at the Humphrey Coliseum tomorrow night in beautiful Starkville, Mississippi. But as you mentioned, Mark, the transfer issues and some of the issues that are specific to college basketball, and I've listened to you speak at many different outlets, and the familiarity makes me comfortable with what you say. But I hear some of these other announcers. I hear them on Sirius Satellite Radio, and when it comes to the state of college basketball and the one and done issues, will you please clear that up for us and our listeners? Because I've maintained that the NCAA is relatively powerless when it comes to the one and done issue, and that basically the NBA holds all the cards. Can you kind of go through that and tell me whether I'm right or wrong?
Well, the NCAA is not relatively helpless, and they are totally helpless.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
right.
this is an NBA players union
issue,
CBA, their latest CBA. So that, and of course, all indications are that they're going to go back in the next CBA and allow high schoolers to come out. And one of the reasons they're doing that is because of the expansion of the G League. The G League is by far the best development league that the NBA has ever produced. It used not to be that way with what they used to call it, the CBA or whatever. And then it was the D League.
D League. I remember D League. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's the G League. Well, the NBA has pumped more money into that. So college is not for everyone. In terms of the transfer, here's what I just don't understand. I'm all for everybody transferring one time and being eligible immediately, because the reason why you get a waiver and why you don't get a waiver, to me, is just ludicrous. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. However, it makes no sense to me, and this is true for any sport. Why is your transfer portal open during the season? That just makes if you have a couple of bad weeks or you don't play in 2 or 3, then you can enter the portal.
Right.
That makes absolutely no sense for me. Now, basketball is a little different because it connects 2 semesters. So if you want to say, well, at the end of the first semester and you want to open the transfer portal for 2 days, I'm okay with that. But otherwise, the football season, the transfer portal should not be open until you play your last game.
I mean, it creates a lot of moral hazard in that regard, and I agree with that 1,000%. And if you ever run into Chris Spatola or Dan Dankic, would you please educate them on this issue, please? Because they think the NCAA can't control the eligibility requirements of these players. My God, I couldn't believe I was listening to that. But anyway, I appreciate you clearing that up for us there, Mark, because I needed to hear that from somebody else to think I wasn't crazy.
Last thing before we let you go, Mark, and we're speaking with Mark Wise on the Titan MR hotline. He's an ESPN college basketball analyst. When you look at, it's kind of a 2-part question. When you look at the SEC tournament that's going to be played in Nashville, what team outside the top 3 teams 3 or 4 teams that we know are going to make the big dance can make a run there?
Well, if you're going to play 4 games in 4 days, you better have a deeper roster. So South Carolina comes to mind right away. Because they play more bodies, they're able to, they have different guys who are capable of giving you 15 on a given night. Mississippi State, for instance, doesn't have a very deep team. All those guys log a lot of minutes. So here's what I think. I'm glad you brought that up. Because of all the parity we have, and here's what I'm going to say about parity. Fans all go, yes, we have college basketball. We have parity in college basketball. Great. I just don't want my team to be part of the parity.
well.
So here's what I think is going to happen I think this is going to happen more this year. I think the selection committee is going to put more emphasis on the conference tournaments in determining those fine line decisions between what seed you're going to get or who gets in and who doesn't. Because I think the difference between teams is going to be astronomically small. And so what's going to be the separator? Well, I think a chance is that it's going to be conference tournaments. So if you're on the bubble and you win a couple of games in your tournament, I think that could be the separator to get you in.
Who are your top 4 seeds right now, today, on Tuesday the 18th?
My top 4 seeds or my top 4 teams?
Let's do your top 4 teams.
My top 4 teams are Baylor, Gonzaga, San Diego State, and Dayton.
The Flyers.
Anthony
Grant. Obi Toppin's one of the best players nobody's ever heard of. Because you follow a lot of college basketball around the country, maybe a couple of teams that people aren't familiar with that could make a run in March Madness?
Well, I hate to be the obvious here, but San Diego State is legit. Malachi Flynn, the point guard transfer from Washington State. So everybody on the East Coast doesn't see a lot of the Aztecs. They just hear the fact that they're unbeaten. But they're legit. I mean, here's what's happened at San Diego State. Their offense has caught up to their defense. Their defense has always been really good. Yeah. But this is a team that can score now. So I'm seeing San Diego State is a legit team. When you get teams that I think are hard to prep for, so if Syracuse gets in, they always throw the zone at you. That's always a problem. Mm-hmm. I would tell you, I also think Baylor is very legit. Mm-hmm. I mean, Baylor is now number 1 team, and they've been number 1 for 3 or 4 weeks. So guess what? Now they're under the radar because everybody says, well, what's wrong now? We don't have any great teams. Well, yeah, we do have some great teams.
Yeah, I would say watch out for Kansas, too. I mean, 3 losses, and everybody's ready to throw them out.
Everybody thinks the sky is falling in Lawrence.
Right.
Well, the sky is falling in Chapel Hill. When's the last time you saw North Carolina lose 6 games in a row?
Yeah.
Well, again, damaged goods. Cole Anthony being out doesn't help in that respect, but you would think a program like Carolina wouldn't fall that far. But maybe it speaks to the parity that we're talking about. I promise you, Carolina fans are going, man, I can't believe we're part of the parity.
No doubt about it.
Hey, listen, Mark, if you get to Starkville and you have time, go to Doty's. Is that what's
I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, go to Doty's. You'll have a great time, Mark, and we loved having you this morning. Thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks, guys.
That's Mark Wise, ESPN basketball analyst. You can follow him at MW Hoops on Twitter. We appreciate him joining the program. We're going to take our first time out of the program. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System studios.
Time out! Time out! Hey!
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Gator's Dockside, wings, ribs, seafood, and beer. The best restoration, Masters of Disaster.
Bob in trouble, gets rid of it. Oh, big hit.
Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Our touchdown sponsors are Radware Promotional Materials, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Miapa Latin Cafe, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Okita America Martial Arts and After School, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys,
The Digital Mortgage Guy,
Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Wrap Spot, Cold Stone Creamery, Gator Dominoes.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. John Cornell, Shane Matthews. If you want to get involved with the program, send us a text on the Titan MRI text line, 353-7465. And if you do text us, let us know who you are. We don't have the technology or anybody answering the phones that says, this is Jim from
Green Cove Springs.
Yeah. So we have a text here, and I don't know who it's from. It says, I love the show. Great to hear JC and the QB back. I heard about the podcast on WRUF.
Oh, wow. Well, the podcast is taking off, everybody. We love having you watch us on Facebook Live or YouTube, of course, also on Spotify, Apple, iTunes. Shane, what is it? Matthewsinthemorning.com. I think, watching that, well, first of all, thanks to Mark. He was great. I feel better about my thinking on one and dones and what my position is on that after he validated that, and I think he's seems very happy and excited to be going to these games and calling them for ESPN, and tomorrow night being in Starkville will be a tremendous experience for him because this is a place that's small and not many people go to, but South Carolina is turning it on right now. And Frank Martin is the kind of coach that if his players believe, they win. And so South Carolina is a dangerous team. Mississippi State, as we've seen, is a dangerous team. And I think the conference is looking at hopefully getting 5 to 6 teams in the tournament if it's possible. We'll see. I think it is. I think it's no doubt that the Big Ten is going to have the most teams probably in the big dance. Back to racing last night, back-to-back 500 winners from Rick Petty in 73-74. I did not know Yarborough, Marlin, and Hamlin. I did not know Yarborough did it in 83-84. Thank you for that. And Sterling Marlin, of course, did it as well. So I guess I had one of those right. I forgot the other two. But certainly that crash last night with Ryan Newman just goes to how safe. I mean, these cars are literally, they've got to be the safest things on four wheels to be able to survive the horrific scene that he was involved in on the last 16th of a mile of that race. But here's the thing that really irritated me and kind of made me have a sour taste in my mouth was as they were attending to his car that was upside down and literally burning with flashing lights everywhere, just about 100 to 200 yards over in the infield, you've got a guy doing donuts.
He didn't know,
I know he didn't know. So let me get to the point, which is NASCAR should have called his crew chief or called somebody, and they couldn't do this, and said, hey, man, calm down on the celebration. We've got a guy who could be dead just down the street. And so to me, NASCAR's got to get a hold of that. And I know the guy's excited. He just won the biggest race on their circuit. Granted, it's back-to-back. I see that. But that crash was horrifying. And we've already had mortality at the Daytona Super Speedway.
Well, as soon as they found out
Oh, they calmed it down, and Joe
Right.
Gibbs came through, the owner, and he said, "Listen, we apologize for this. We just didn't know." Okay, fine.
But think about, but
it was right there.
But think about how many accidents happened in that before the.
There was a
terrible
bunch.
one.
I know. Caution flags everywhere.
They're used to. They're used to
They are
crashes.
used to that. I see that. But when you see flashing lights, ambulances, and all this, and you're spinning out, I don't know. That just bothered me a little bit. Not that I don't hate Denny Hamlin. I get it. I think he's fine. But I guess that's just racing. That's NASCAR. At any rate, we did get the news that, in case you've missed it, that Ryan Newman is in serious condition but has non-life-threatening injuries. He's got 2 daughters, wife. I think more about that than I do who won the race.
Yeah, and Daryl from Green Coast Springs says, "Good morning, guys. We need to get a victory in hoops tonight. A shout out to NASCAR with their safety package. They have come a long way since Dale Earnhardt's death in 2001. True. That could have been a lot worse yesterday with Ryan Newman's accident."
Well, it was bad. I mean, it could have been worse if he passed away. Sure.
Well, they say it's the worst crash that people have ever seen. Period.
I can't believe he survived that thing. But at any rate, listen. They'll look at that and do what they can. Other thing that's taken the sports world by storm, and I don't know if you've been thinking about this much, but I kind of been thinking about it, was this Houston Astros scandal with the way the players are reacting with basically no downside. You can get Mike Trout, Justin Turner, and Corey Bellinger to come out and slam the players, and they know that there's no problem with doing it because, we have a player representative who is always going to defend all the players in the players' union as it relates to things like this. But I just warn them that they better not be found to have done anything in their careers, because if you speak out against the players like this, it's kind of like you're speaking out against your union members, right? Because the Players Association, the Players Union, is there to defend players. So they're not going to suspend these players. They are not going to get suspended. What I do think Rob Manfred has a problem with, though, and what's going to really be difficult for him, is that it's a no-win situation. But what do you do with that trophy, QB? Reggie Bush had his trophy taken away, right? OJ had his trophy taken away for his crime, which was a crime. But Reggie Bush, that's a bad example, but Reggie Bush had his trophy taken away. We've had trophies taken away from many champions who didn't do it by the rules, the steroid era and so forth. And here the Houston Astros with their World Series trophy in the glass in Houston.
Here's the difference about the steroid era. JC, you could take a bunch of steroids.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm going to hit home runs.
May not help you.
I get it. I know.
If I know a fastball is coming or a curveball is coming, that helps.
That absolutely
And
does.
Speaking of that, we got a text here on the Titan MR text
But it's still
line.
a conscious decision to try to get an advantage that is not legal.
The more that I hear players, speaking of this, okay, let me get to this text. This comes from Butterballs. Even with the threat of possible suspension from the commissioner, do you think the opposing pitchers still drill a couple of Astro hitters to send a message?
And I'm glad Butterball brought that up because right now, QB, go ahead with your thought.
I saw on Twitter that there's
over-under is 88.
I saw 89 and a half batters hit
It's going
this year.
up. You know why it's going up, QB? It's going up because people are taking the over. They're taking the over. I would not be wanting to wear orange and blue in Houston this year. I guarantee you Jose Altuve gets some high heat this year. There's no question about it. And yeah, you take the over on that hit by pitch with the Houston Astros.
So you asked me. I think they need to take the trophy away.
Okay, so that's where I'm at.
As much as I love the Astros team because I mean now it has an asterisk by it, but you got all those young, really good players.
Oh, sure, which is why I don't understand they had to do this kind of thing. And maybe some of the players like, Garrett Cole is saying, I don't know what they're talking about. Justin Verlander has had some issues. He had them in Detroit. He's got them here in Houston now. And the thing is that trophy is a symbol of a championship that was won all fair and square. And now that we know that it wasn't because they were caught, it almost seems like, it's okay as long as we don't get caught. No, that trophy is a symbol of a championship. And Rob Manfred is in a very difficult situation as commissioner. If you were the commissioner, would you take the trophy, QB?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a very emphatic yes, and I like those kinds of answers. I can't say that I would, but I think I should. So certainly I agree with that. Also, last night, in case you missed it, of course most of you did, but I didn't, the Tampa Bay Lightning won a team record
11 in a row.
Straight games, beating the Colorado Avalanche in overtime on a Nikita Kucherov breakaway goal. And it was a thrilling game, 4-3, and it comes on the heels of what I got to experience over the weekend in Tampa, sitting on the ice and watching them bang the Philadelphia Flyers all up and down the boards. It is such a thrill. And here are the Lightning with the second highest point total in the Eastern Conference.
Didn't they do something like this last year?
Well, they did.
And
they
then
had
when
the high.
and it
Well,
got
they had a
swept
record.
by a terrible team.
Well, they got swept by the 8th seed, the
Yeah.
Columbus Blue Jackets, and so obviously the playoffs are what matters. But I think it's cool to see Tampa Bay streak like this. I mean, it's Tampa. We have a lot of fans in Tampa.
We're not going to give your Lightning the play of the
play
day,
of the day, 'cause
but
we
we're going to
got
go
another
straight
one.
to our video here for the play of the day, which is brought to you by the best restoration, whether flood, fire, or Mother Nature call, the masters of disaster today. The play of the day happened last night in college basketball, and that would be a last-second shot by the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to send the Carolina Tar Heels to their sixth straight loss. And here it is. And so
I can listen.
that
to
was
Sean,
that was a huge game for Notre Dame
Yeah.
because they're on the bubble. They needed to win it, and they knocked down a last-second shot.
I can listen to Sean McDonough.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's him and Gus Johnson are probably my two favorite at this point in time.
Gus Johnson is very
he's
good.
great,
So
yeah.
you watch a lot of Big East basketball?
Well,
JC?
no, but I do like watching football on Fox because they show some of the.
Well,
Big
Gus
12
doesn't do
and
that.
Oh, he doesn't work on Fox anymore.
No, he doesn't do
Well,
NFL.
he used to. No, the football. No, Fox on college football.
Oh, college football with Gus Johnson and what's his
Gus
name?
Johnson, Joe Klatt.
Yeah.
Come on.
I thought you were talking about NFL.
Oh, okay. Well, no, he doesn't do the NFL, but certainly it's fun to listen to him and, of course, Sean McDonough. I love him. His call when Tua hit 2nd and 26 against Georgia. I think I watched it over 100 times listening to him when Devontae Smith pulled in that pass. I wish I was there. Next time, I'm just going to spend the money and go QB. I can't sit there and think to myself, I could have been there, but instead I did what you do and sat on my butt on the sofa. I can't believe I did that.
So
I wish I was there. But but all right, so back to Carolina real quick. Your 6 losses in a row for the Tar Heels brings them to 10-16. Their record is literally almost diametrically opposed to Florida's.
and they're a blue blood.
Listen to these teams they've lost to. Well, listen to some of these losses, QB. They've lost 15 out of 19 games, which is shocking. But they lost to Virginia Tech by 2, 79-77. They lost to Boston College by 1, 71-70. They lost to Duke after blowing a 13-point lead, 98-96. They then got blown out at Wake Forest after that Duke game, which you can understand. They come back home and lose to the defending national champion Virginia Cavaliers 64-62. And then last night they lose to Notre Dame 77-76. At what point, QB, do these players start thinking in their brains or in their minds that, I mean, they are so fragile right now and obviously very vulnerable to more losses like this. But as a player, you're a former player in football, but as a player, at what point do these kids start thinking, okay, well, we just can't win and we're just going to pack it in?
Well, I don't think they will because a couple of those guys are going to be lottery picks in the NBA.
That helps.
And here's the other thing, too. They still have an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament if you get hot in the tournament, in the ACC tournament.
Well, that's all they have to play for,
Yeah.
truly. But I mean, these losses are just gut-wrenching. I mean, to come back.
Well, they blew a 15-point lead last night.
Yeah, and they blew a 13-point lead at home to Duke. Virginia, they had them beaten and lost again. So not that we're sitting here worried about North Carolina. I mean, you know, we've gotten a history on them in terms of classroom attendance and so forth. But anyway, North Carolina is in the toilet right now.
So some Gator news and notes. Gator baseball tonight and tomorrow. They play JU. They're in Jacksonville tonight. They'll be back at McKeithen tomorrow night. And then again tonight in the O'Connell Center, the Arkansas Razorbacks come to town. And it's a team Florida should beat. They have a better roster. You got to watch number 15 in red, though, Mason Jones. He scored 38 last week against Mississippi State. Some other games around the league. As we mentioned, Tennessee's at Vanderbilt, Ole Miss at Missouri, and the big one in the SEC tonight is Kentucky's at LSU. So are you going to the game tonight, JC?
Well, if the CPA calls me and says I've got actually, no, I have a tennis appointment tonight.
Oh,
I'm
geez.
going to
Here's some
battle on the
stats
tennis
on
courts.
Arkansas, which is kind of I don't want to say amazing, but for their NCAA tournament resume, what it would look like right now if the ball just bounced a little bit different. And remember, their best player, Isaiah Joe, is out, I think, for the rest of the year, had knee surgery. They have 9 total losses. 8 of their losses have been by 7 points or less, 5 losses by 4 points or less, and they've lost 3 games in overtime.
Well,
the ball just hadn't bounced their way.
Yeah, no, that's true. It could change, but that's true. But what Mark said, if you missed us, you could go back on the podcast later once it's archived and listen to Mark Wise, who we had at the top of the hour. And I agree with him in that, we've got a bigger field of potential winners in the tournament, which will make it a lot more interesting and exciting in March. And as I mentioned yesterday or the day before, actually it must have been yesterday, that 6 teams, ranked teams, 6 times have lost to unranked teams. This year it's been 16 times that top 5 ranked teams have lost to unranked teams. And that, to me, says, he talks, parity is one thing, but sometimes just not showing up and not playing is another. And one team who has shown up every single night and is unbeaten is another team he mentioned. Those are these Aztecs of San Diego State. The secret is out on them now. So we'll see how they go.
The secret?
I mean,
They're
nobody
winning,
talks about that. I mean, we talked about here on Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning, JC. We talked about
Reno has a question for you.
Well, we talked about San Diego State 2 weeks ago, QB. You probably don't remember, but I remember. And that team is still unbeaten. Now, granted, they play in the Mountain West. Would they be undefeated in the SEC? I doubt it. But they play in the Mountain West. But here's Loreno, who I know as Larry, says, how about San Diego State in the tourney? How do you think they will do? Or are they possibly a one-and-done team still undefeated? Well, we talked to Mark about San Diego, and he mentioned it. He says they're legit. Okay, that means that they're very good. Whether that means they're going to the Sweet 16 or not is anybody's guess. But there are 2 teams out west that you really can point a finger at and say these are legitimate Sweet 16 type teams, and those are the Gonzaga Bulldogs and the San Diego State Aztecs. If you see Gonzaga, watch how they play offense. They are very good. The question is, will they be able to stop anybody? But on offense, they are a finely tuned, well-oiled machine, and I look forward to watching them. I like them.
Yeah, well, we're going to take our second time out of the program. When we come back, we'll talk more hoops. We'll talk about the race. Whatever you want to talk about, send us some text on the Titan MRI text line. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Gator's Dockside, wings, ribs, seafood, and beer. The best restoration, Masters of Disaster.
Bob in trouble, gets ready. Oh, big hit.
Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Our touchdown sponsors are Radware Promotional Materials, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Miapa Latin Cafe, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Okita America Martial Arts and After School, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys,
The Digital Mortgage Guy,
Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Wrap Spot, Cold Stone Creamery, Gator Dominoes.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. John Cornell, Shane Matthews, and Celebration Point is where JC goes with the Gators to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Nike, Palmetto Moon, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the head ball coach's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. And speaking of
him,
he will be sitting right there while you're on a tennis assignment tomorrow.
I'm on a tennis assignment, that's right.
So the HBC will be in studio. So if you have any questions, shoot them to the text line, the Titan MRI text line, 352-353-7465.
Yeah.
Or you can send them via Facebook Live or what have you, and we'll have the HBC answer your questions.
So he was at the game Saturday when Billy was being honored and taking
Standing
pictures
in the corner
and so
going.
forth. Yeah, he loves to sit down there on the baseline taking pictures, cheering for his Gators. Jerry joins him there on occasion, I would guess. But I think one of the things you could ask him about is the thing that you've been bringing up since the beginning of the XFL. And
I am. Don't worry.
Okay, so I know you're thinking about that.
We're going to have him the next Viper head coach.
Well, listen, I mean, there are worse things out there, and certainly watching that team play, I'd rather watch, somebody sweep the floor. It is awful. They can't score points. So certainly maybe that could be in his future. Of course, he'll probably sit there and go, "Oh, Shane, no, I'm pretty much, that was it after Orlando, the Apollos." And then he'll go into a story about that. But, those players who played for those Orlando Apollos, it's too bad. They were the best team in that league. They were going to win that championship. And I know that now, did any of them get to play, move on to the XFL?
Gary, the quarterback was the second or third string quarterback for the Browns. I think a couple.
So he moved it to the NFL. I'm talking about this league now.
Oh, there's a bunch of those.
There are a bunch.
But what's interesting is you talk about in order you think for the XFL to make it, they need parity, and I think there's more parity in the XFL than there was in the Alliance. I felt like Orlando was head and shoulders above everybody else. Yeah. And then Neuheisel's team was he in Arizona, I think?
Right.
Wherever he was.
I think it was
They were like
Arizona.
the second. They came in second, but
they beat Orlando.
Those two teams, though, were so much better than the other teams. And I don't know if they had better players, they had better coaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, Coach Spurrier, when you look at the coaches in that league, his resume is better than any other.
It's not just his resume, just what he does. I mean, his production as a coach is tremendous. I loved, though, I got to and I went back and watched that New York Guardians DC. Who are they? The Defenders.
You taped it?
Well, no. What I saw was I went back on Twitter and looked at some of the pieces or the video clips of what you were talking about when McGloin got benched and how he was saying, "Man, we need a new game plan." Blah blah blah. And that's just.
He may be done playing football.
I was gonna say he is throwing people under the bus.
Well, here's the thing.
And I just don't know if you do that live like that because Coach Mangus and Coach Gilbride and so forth, everybody on the offense is going to go back and say, "Dude, what are you talking about?"
Well, as a quarterback, one thing you can't do is you can't place blame on others. He was blaming them for play call, whether that's true or not. But here's the thing. Pretty much everybody playing the XFL, their goal is to try to get to a training camp, not make a roster,
right? Just
get to a camp. And McGloin has played in the NFL a little bit. Well, I can promise you, there is no way in heck that dude is going to get invited to a training camp now. From that position as the quarterback, the leader of your team, you cannot say those type things.
Wouldn't he be smart enough to know that, though? Wouldn't you think he'd use his brains, or he's just talking on emotion, and maybe that's what he was?
That's fine, but you don't say that.
Well, yeah, I just think.
I mean, I could see I could see you going, that was a dumb play call,
right?
But not the entire game
throws
plan.
The whole book at him. So anyway, they didn't score any points, and they were embarrassed.
And that's
by
your
DC.
team.
Well, I like Coach Mangus.
Right.
I mean, he's been on our show, QB. Who do you like?
I don't have a team.
Well, you like Dallas because Scotty, and I like Dallas because
no, I'm rooting for GA and the Guardians.
Scotty over there at Dallas, right? We love Dallas. Dallas is a great place, but really, I mean, Tampa Bay is the closest team, and they suck. They're horrible, so it's hard to watch. Although I do kind of like that V on their hat.
Who picked their colors?
Yeah, that's horrible.
Color scheme is terrible.
Awful. Maybe they'll change that, but I did like. I saw a kid in Tampa because I was there last weekend wearing a Tampa Bay Vipers hat, but he wasn't watching the game. But I saw him wearing a hat. At any rate, I think I think the league has a chance, but I do think that the more teams that are interesting and the more teams that, if there is parity, as opposed to one or two teams running away with it, you're going to see better attendance figures. Now, St. Louis, the Battle Hawks, very tough team, right? They're 1-1. They've lost to the Houston Roughnecks in a close game. But they've sold out the lower bowl of their arena stadium. I guess they're playing in the old Edwards Jones Dome where St. Louis Rams played. But I think they sold out the entire lower bowl. And just about every...
What's that, about 20,000?
25, 26,000, right? And then every private booth, box, whatever, has been sold out for St. Louis, who's an area that had their team taken from them, much like the Oakland area, and has certainly jumped on the bandwagon for this team in St. Louis in the XFL. I don't know if it holds on. I hope this league makes it 2 or 3 years. I think it can. I think the biggest reason why it will or could is because you know where to find the games on TV, and the ratings will reflect that, and that's what will keep the advertisers and the owners happy, that at least somebody is watching this stuff, as well as buying tickets in these soccer stadiums or in some of these bigger stadiums where the lower bowl is at least full.
On Facebook Live, Rick asked, does the XFL limit the area teams that they can recruit from, like the AFF? I know they had a training camp out in Houston or somewhere out in Texas. I don't think there's people that are allocated depending on what part of the country you went to college.
Yeah.
I think they had a draft, I believe, and they take the best players to fit their system. Well, I could be wrong. I can ask Coach Spurrier tomorrow.
Ask Coach Spurrier about that tomorrow. I'm also curious what he thinks of course, you're going to talk about the Florida Gators with Mullen. He's going to praise Mullen, of course, like everybody does and should after the first 2 years Mullen has been here. I guess we're just kind of teasing that show for tomorrow, and certainly having him for an hour is
You think he'll last an hour?
Well, why? You think
You know
he'll
how
just
he
jump
gets
up after
he
the
gets
first
fidgety.
break? Well, he gets fidgety unless you're letting him tell stories. He loves to tell stories, right? I mean, that's what he does, and he loves it when you're listening to his stories. So hopefully, and ask him about the restaurant too. Ask him what his favorite. Yeah, I know you're going to be all over it. I'll be.
What
on
would you
assignment.
like for me to tell him to put on the menu for you?
Put on the menu. I've become an Italian sausage lover all of a sudden lately. I don't know why. I used to never eat Italian sausage. Well, I used to never. I am, but when I go to a place like that, okay, I'm going to treat myself once in a while. There, QB. But if you want to go pure health, okay, we'll go pure health. Tell them I want blackened grouper. I like the blackened grouper. That's my favorite fish. Let's go with that. With some, you can throw them in some tacos. I like the garlic mashed potatoes and the green beans. That's what I had Saturday night in Tampa after the hockey game. I had blackened grouper. It was that big. I had garlic mashed potatoes and green beans with some unsweetened tea because I'm trying to cut down my sugar intake. So I'm drinking unsweetened tea with 1 bag of sugar in it.
Very nice.
Just 1 bag. You can put 1 bag of sugar in there and you never even know sugar's in there, but it kind of takes away some of the way, unsweet tea. I mean, you drink sweet tea because you're from the South. So I think, and I am too, but I think 1 bag or 2 bags of sugar at most in unsweet tea is less sugar than sweet tea. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Well, what do you want to put on the menu? What do you want to see on his menu up there at Visors?
Visors.
You want some black eyed peas and some mustard greens.
That would be good.
You want some fried this and fried that.
I don't eat a whole lot of fries.
And you talk to me about eating healthy. Yeah, you love fried chicken and all that kind of crap. Okra. You want all that southern Mississippi food. That's what you want.
Well, Coach isn't gonna. I don't know what they're gonna have, but we'll
what
talk
are you
about.
Tell them to put on.
I want Jerry's chocolate chip cookies on the menu.
There you go.
She makes the best chocolate chip cookie you've ever had.
Oh, okay.
So now that we've digressed,
Mr. Sugar over here talking to me about healthy eating, and he's talking about chocolate chip cookies.
Hey,
yeah.
Look at me and look at you.
I don't know. I'm wearing a Navy sweatshirt. You've got Live Oaks Golf Club. Maybe we can get Live Oaks in Jackson, Mississippi, to be a part of our program.
Maybe we can get them to give away some foursomes.
Well, right now, that poor place is probably underwater. It's awful.
Yeah, our folks in Mississippi, they had a flood.
There. Yeah.
Flood is bad in Jackson.
Rick wants shrimp and grits. Well,
we're going to have chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles. We had Danny on. We've had some real 5-star quality guests on the podcast, dude. I don't know if anybody else can compare. In fact, nobody can compare. The people we've had on this show. I mean, we had the great Mark Wise on earlier today. We've had Danny Werfel. We had Kirkpatrick on there, the great Florida tight end. We've had Jeff Cardozo.
Brad Wilkerson.
We've had the best baseball player to ever step foot on campus, Brad Wilkerson. We've had
Andy Staples.
Andy Staples, Sports Illustrated. Jeez, you have got such a lineup.
And we got more to come.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have them every morning from 8 to 9 a.m. The great thing about this podcast is that you can, if you miss it early because you're driving or doing something else, you can, of course, pull it up online at YouTube, on Facebook, on MatthewsInTheMorning.com, Spotify, Apple iTunes, all kinds of great stuff to pull up our show, and you can do it at any time of the day you want to.
No doubt about it. And, so again, tomorrow, we want to thank Mark Wise, first of all, for joining us. We know his travel schedule's crazy right now.
He loves it, though.
Oh, he loves some college basketball
now. Yeah.
And
I think he likes, really, he was the, working with Mick and so forth on the Gator radio network, but I think he loves calling these other games in these other places.
Well, yeah, because he probably makes more money, and he gets to travel around, and he's a hoop junkie, so he gets to watch other teams play.
Yeah.
Even though he lives here in Gainesville and he's worked for the university for many, many years.
That's right. We had Tim Walton, the softball coach, come on the show. I didn't watch the. How did they look? You never did tell me how they looked in that exhibition game against the.
They lost 5-2. Had a chance to tie it up.
Who was pitching for the USA team?
Monica Abbott.
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
and then she came out. She came, how you can re-enter as a pitcher in softball. She came back in and finished the game out. But
well, it's understandable.
Kendall Lindemann hit a bomb off the scoreboard. I can't remember who she hit it off. I don't think she hit it off of Abbott.
No.
But no, they played well.
Yeah.
That night was so cool because when they introduced Team USA, and then they introduced 3 of Tim's girls from the University of Florida. That was pretty dang cool.
Oh, no doubt about it. And the fact that he can get kids to come back just like Billy did to be back at the University of Florida and show their appreciation to their coach just gives you a testament to these coaches that they have here at Florida. So looking forward to who we've got going forward here the rest of the week. You've got Coach Spurrier tomorrow, and then we'll give you the lineup after that for Thursday and Friday.
Yep, so that's going to be a wrap today on today's show. It's brought to you by Wrap Spot. A vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot will give your business years of brand recognition and increased sales. Call Wrap Spot today. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.